Over a year ago, I made a video talking about PUBG and how different I thought the game would look in 12 months time. I released that video on 18th of October 2017 and I thought now, over a year later, it would be really interesting to look back and see exactly what I got right and what I got wrong, and to see what has actually changed and improved when it comes to PUBG. Sounds like it could be fun. And this video today is sponsored by Nvidia. All of the new snow map gameplay you see here is running on a GeForce RTX 2080 Ti graphics card at a glorious 4K resolution. Max settings and the frame rate is in the top left hand corner if you want to check that out. Link is in the description for more info on those cards. So let's start with some obvious PUBG changes in the last 12 months, performance and netcode. Back in that video I said that you've got to assume that within a year there would be huge improvements to performance in the game and the way that the game handles networking. In all fairness, has this improved in 12 months? I think you have to say that it has. More recently, PUBG has had a Fix PUBG campaign where they aim to improve as much of the game as possible, fixing bugs and improving the frame rates. But if you objectively look at how the game was in October in 2017 to how it is today, then it's night and day in my opinion. It's definitely improved in netcode and frame rate. I wanted 120 FPS constant and I would have to say that I do achieve that now when I'm playing at 1080p or 1440p. Across all of the maps, performance is a lot better with more consistent frame rates, although some built up areas do still suffer a bit. I also said that I thought the game would be released on both of the biggest consoles within 12 months, the Xbox One and PS4. Previously, Xbox has had an exclusivity of sorts with PUBG, but the game has now released on PS4 too. Whilst I've not played it myself, I've read online that it handles pretty well on PlayStation. Perhaps I'll check it out one day. And of course, the game released on mobile too, and the mobile version of the game is incredibly popular. I've played it, I've done a video on it, and it was pretty good. So what about movement then? Well, when I made that first video, we had just seen some early footage of the vaulting system, a prototype of it, and it was due to be released onto the test server shortly after that. Of course, nowadays it's actually hard to imagine PUBG without vaulting because it's been in for so long, but when it arrived, it was really a breath of fresh air and incredibly game changing. Come to think of it, how did we manage without it? I was hoping that things like rolling and leaning while prone would make it into the game too, but I suppose those aren't really a priority. The movement is still a tad clunky though, to be honest, especially when we've now had a chance to play plenty of other BR games since the release of PUBG. Look at Blackout and how smooth traversal is there, and while I know PUBG and COD Blackout are different types of games with very different gameplay speeds, the movement in Blackout is so smooth and it makes the experience all the more enjoyable. I think PUBG still has a bit of a way to go to make the movement a bit better, and I hope in the next 6 months that they attempt another pass at that. Next up is maps, and this is a big one. It's hard to believe that when I made that video in October 2017, there was only one map in the game, Erangel, the OG. And let's be honest, while that map was great fun at the time, we wanted and needed a new map desperately. At that point, we had some screenshots of the desert map that was to become Miramar, and there were rumours and suggestions of a snow map even back then. And I suggested that in 12 months time, it would be pretty likely that we'd have 3 or even 4 maps in the game. Of course, the desert map released, but didn't go down all that well, did it? We waited all that time for a new map, and when it arrived, it just wasn't that fun, and I wanted to play Erangel instead because Miramar, it didn't do it for me. It was too big, too many clumps of buildings, and too much open ground. And then Sanhok released later on, a much smaller 4x4 map that I enjoyed. It had a rapid pace and the mid game was fun. And finally, very recently, Vikendi. I love the new snow map. It's got plenty of interesting areas for firefights, snowmobiles, you leave footprints in the snow and can be tracked, plus it's got space shuttles and most importantly, dinosaurs. That's a 10 from me. It plays well, and like a proper BR map, it's got iconic zones and arena areas to fight in. And we were also given a map selection too. It was taken away for some reason, but eventually brought back, thankfully. Now, one thing a lot of new players struggled with in PUBG was practicing with the weapons. Some of them, for example, were only available in crates, like say the Orm. This meant that learning the lead and drop wasn't always that easy because you only had a limited time with it if you were lucky enough to find it in the game. A practice range would definitely have helped with that. And well, a couple of months ago they added one, and I think it's really good. I did a run through of the practice range in September, and I remember saying and I stand by it that every FPS should have a test range like this. It's got everything that you need to practice movement, grenade throws, all weapon types, gadgets, items, moving targets, the whole lot. The only downside to it is that you were match made into it rather than being able to run it locally on your own and just invite players privately. What about that replay system? Remember talk of that a year ago? Well, I think quite a few people thought that it might have been a bit far-fetched for a game like PUBG, myself included, but I did talk about it in that video because I thought it would be amazing to see in the game, and they did say that they'd internally tested it. Fast forward 12 months and now in the game you can replay your entire matches if you want to. You can jump back in, you can go slow motion, you can switch between players in a large bubble around you, first person, third person. It's pretty dope. In fact, most BR games have this feature now. Fortnite, PUBG, Blackout, it's become a standard feature for BR games, and having the ability to see where you went wrong or work out where an enemy player disappeared to is a very useful tool, and of course for just making those cinematic moments. But they didn't stop there. We've now got kill cams in place, and we didn't have that a year ago. This was another feature that was talked about back when I made my video, so I guessed it would be available within a year, and it was. The kill cam isn't perfect, but it does do the job. In solos it can play straight away after you die, but in squads and duos it will only allow you to view it once your entire team is dead. Makes sense. I did say that I wanted the endgame UI to have more information though, more detailed data on the game, possibly even a heat map of kills, which even I thought may have been pushing it a little bit, but even still the end screen doesn't have all that much information compared to what it did 12 months ago. So not much of an improvement there in my opinion. One big feature that I talked about was skill-based matchmaking. I expected that within a year PUBG would have a ranking system whereby you would gain a certain rank by playing, and then you would in turn be placed against players of equal rank to you, even though it kind of did that anyway. This has now been implemented, at least in part. It's not quite where I think it needs to be. In fact, the ranking system is kind of hidden away, but it is there. You've got bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, elite, master and grandmaster. It also doesn't work quite like it does in, say, CSGO. If you're a DMG in CSGO, the game will do its best to pit you against players around that rank. In PUBG, you might be a certain rank, say diamond, but it doesn't actually take that rank into consideration apparently when you matchmake. It instead uses your overall MMR. They say that because of the sheer amount of players needed for each game, the matchmaking pool needs to be greater than just a certain rank, and I can see where they're coming from with that. So there is a ranking system in the game now, but it's not a proper competitive matchmaking system yet, in my opinion. Customization has also come on a long way since back then. It was already popular, but I thought there might be a lot more options to come. And I even thought that there would be some crossovers with streamers and YouTubers. I suggested pans with people's logo on, for example. And well, PUBG has since had a few streamer crossovers, most notably with crates from Little Lexi, Shroud and Dr. Disrespect, with cosmetic items designed with your favourite streamers in mind. And I imagine that stuff like this will continue down the line. Can we have the JF logo on a pan please, PUBG? That'd be fantastic. Oh yeah, we got emotes too. Not that I ever see people use them. I don't use them. Maybe they just weren't a good fit for the game. Now one big thing I thought that we would have by now, and we don't, is mod support. This was talked about and chalked up a lot during the early days of PUBG and celebrated as a fact. But there seems to have been a huge U-turn within the past 12 months, and it seems now unlikely that mod support will ever be available for the game, which is a huge shame. Community-driven content such as skins, maps, weapons, or even being able to make full total conversion mods for the game could have been hugely advantageous, opened up more players to the game and given people job opportunities. Not to mention that modders tend to be able to point out and fix countless bugs with the base game along the way, and that could be profitable and useful for everyone. And I did mention in that video that there would be a few more new game modes introduced. I talked about a possible competitive 5v5 mode that was briefly hinted by Player Unknown, but that seems to not really have transpired. There is of course a big competitive esports scene though, based around the main game mode. There's been a few big competitions and invitationals so far, as well as a recent hacking scandal within the game. We also do get special events and weekly modes that we can jump into, from small TDM modes to sniper rifles only, etc, etc. These are okay, but not really engaging for long periods of time. Now wrapping things up, there were a few other small things that I talked about in here too. For example, the ability to heal while on the move in, let's say, a car. So as a passenger, I wanted to be able to use bandages and boosts, but at the time that wasn't possible. But As of today, you can now do this, providing that the route isn't too bumpy. I also thought that there might need to be some UI updates, and they have done a big update to the UI and improved it quite a bit in the past 12 months. It's a much nicer overall experience these days. In conclusion, I think most of the things that we predicted over a year ago did happen. The one thing that PUBG couldn't anticipate though is the surge of BR games coming to the market. Now we've got COD BR, Fortnite, Ring of Elysium, even something like Realm Royale, countless other indie titles, and even Battlefield is bringing out its own battle royale called Firestorm. PUBG has made great progress, I think, but is it enough to keep its market share over these other AAA titles? We will see. I suppose in another 12 months we'll have the answer. Maybe in 12 months time the BR genre will be dead and there'll be something else replacing it. Who knows? With that said, I'm going to leave it there, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. A big thanks to Nvidia once again for sponsoring. If you liked it, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe for more, hit that bell, and I'll see you in the next one.